Hi, friends. Logan Clements here with the Better Events podcast. And in this week's episode 202, we are taking you behind the scenes of the Northwest Event Show that happened at the end of March here in Seattle. We interviewed some attendees about what they think you need to do to create better events and our impressions of the conference this year and all the years prior that we've been going to this really great Pacific Northwest event industry event. So without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of the Better Events Podcast. We are very excited for our episode today because we are going behind the scenes at the Northwest Event Show. We're talking about lessons learned for creating better events, which is our whole brand. So we're excited for today's episode. But before we get into it, of course, we have our conversation starter. So Logan, hello. And then also, what's your favorite spring flower? Because 'tis the season, it's spring.
This is a very fun icebreaker question that I will invite our listeners to steal for their next virtual meeting or gathering because it is both visual. It's good on the senses, visual and sense of smell when you're just talking about flowers. So my favorite flower is a hydrangea, and specifically blue hydrangeas in the shade. I've only learned this because my partner's a landscape architect, and he says the sun actually washes out the color of certain flowers. And so the blue of a beautiful hydrangea actually pops more in the shade. And I will say every time I see it, I like the living plant. I don't like cut it and bring it in the house, but like seeing it out in nature, it just makes me smile. So blue hydrangeas. Mary, what's your favorite spring flower?
I love that because I'm learning something new about flowers, and I generally love flowers, but I usually don't know the names of them. I'm like, oh, that looks pretty. So I was thinking, like, what are like some PNW spring flowers that I really always enjoy looking at? I have to say rhododendrons, honestly. And I really do like them because they get so big. And so and they're starting to like bloom now. So when I see them, I'm like, oh, it's spring. And I know like how voluptuous they're going to become. And so, yeah, I absolutely love a rhododendron from my perspective.
If you would appreciate this, Archie calls them roadies.
Those roadies.
The roadies are going to pop.
I love that.
Roadies. I don't know if that's even a technical term, but that's how when you said that, I was like, oh, the roadies. He's got a lot at his property out in Graham, lots of rhododendrons. So lovely. We love talking about flowers, but this is all about the Northwest Event Show, which is an annual conference that happens in Seattle. And we have had the pleasure of attending this event multiple years in a row. I think, Mary, actually, the first time I ever went was 2019 when I first moved here because I was trying to network and meet people in the event industry. And most recently this year, we had a very exciting, like several activations that we did at the Northwest Event Show, partnering with them. I will caveat before we get into our discussion. Unfortunately, I was not able to be there. This was the week of Jeannie's passing, and my brain was just with family and unable to attend, but Mary held it down for us with all of our amazing activations. So I am going to learn just along with you listeners about this year's experience that she had. And then also I'll share a little bit since, again, this is an annual event that I often look forward to. So I have some more historical knowledge. But Mary, we start broad. What is the Northwest Event Show and why do we enjoy it?
I think you described a good summary. It is this gathering of event professionals or people who are just involved in events in general. Actually, you don't have to be, an event planner or anyone like that, coming to gather and attend exhibits and education surrounding the industry and then also just other skills as well. And so what I personally enjoy about it each year, my favorite part is the show floor. It's going around to all those exhibits, those vendors, and learning about what they have to offer. And I love this the most about the show. So if you have a show in your area, like this is helpful for you because I meet so many vendors that I'm actually going to work with. And I think that's the key difference is a lot of times when I'm traveling to other events, I may or may not have the opportunity to work with a vendor. But when they're in your own backyard, that opportunity just like grows exponentially. And so it's super valuable to me and my team. And it's become this thing over the years that has developed for me as a person. Cause like Logan said, my first year I went, I believe, was when I was employed working full time for another company. I was working for a nonprofit and I heard about the show and I was like, well, I should go because I helped plan some events for this nonprofit and I need to know like what's out there. So that was like a perspective. But now I go as like a business owner and it's an opportunity to network and just, meet people and then also just see new friends and have this kind of like more amplified experience for me now. So I really do look forward to it every year. And now I go with my team, which is an even different experience because we do things together. And so, yeah, the show has really morphed for me over the years just based on my like professional growth. And I think that's been kind of cool that I can morph with it. So that's my experience with the show. Logan, what about you? What have you enjoyed in past years?
Yeah, I think similar to what you said. I mean, it's vendors not just in Seattle, but kind of across the Pacific Northwest. They do have some destinations that join. I know that's where we've got to touch base with our friends up from Richmond, BC, when we did our Tourism Richmond partnership last year. That was kind of a fun touch point. But yeah, it's a great way just to reconnect with the industry. Again, a lot of what I do is not so location based. So I feel like for me, it's more networking with other event pros and vendors just to touch base, remind them I'm here and just see what they've been up to. And then I'm usually a sucker for the content. So I like some of the breakouts that they do. Last year, I got to speak in 2024 talking about game presentation, which was just a really fun session to do and got some really good questions. And so that's what I'm always interested to see what they have on their stages. And again, it's just a good excuse to connect. So yeah, I think that's kind of it's one of the events I try to save room on my calendar for, which we've talked about this on the podcast, that as a busy event professional is not an honor I give many events. So if that tells you anything.
True honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be sad if I missed it. So I think I concur with that for sure. And like Logan teased earlier, we had the opportunity to be involved more so this year in some certain activations and components. And so, Logan, can you share just a recap of the things that we had lined up to be involved with this year?
Yeah, well, first last year we had our first coffee meetup, which I thought was really fun. Mary, you mentioned about coming with a team and how fun that is to walk the floor. And I do want to just selfishly plug our coffee meetup that we just kind of planned, not in association with the Northwest Event Show. And we did that last year and this year. And last year it was really fun because that's the one I was at, was just to give me as an independent contractor some buddies to walk the floor with. Where we met up at a coffee shop nearby about an hour before, had some great conversation, helped introduce new people. So you had new friends, and then we all walked in with our coffees and walked the show floor together. So that was a really fun way to kick it off. And we did that again this year. So as a Better Events listener, you are welcome to join us at future Northwest Event shows for this coffee meetup if you want to be on our list. And then we also were kind of an official sponsor of the Northwest Event Show this year, which was really exciting, where we had not just the opportunity to record some clips that you're going to hear later, where we're showcasing from attendees who went to the Northwest Event Show, things they're excited about, better events. But we also, Mary led a food tour of the show floor, which is just such a fun activation. They were looking for something different, where you guys wore silent like disco headsets and got to talk and walk and see some of the best of the floor, which I thought was such a cool idea, especially if you're someone who gets overwhelmed with just how many vendors they have. It would give you a good framework to start to see where you'd want to come back to. And then Mary was also a speaker at a nonprofit panel on day 2 of the conference. So we were, I feel like, all over the place. We had podcast recording, tour, speaking, coffee meetup. That's 4 things, Mary. That's a lot of things.
I know. I'm like kind of tired thinking about it actually because it was exhausting. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the definition of doing the most, but it was so fun. I have to say, like, it was just all of those things were an opportunity to be more involved, to meet more people and just reconnect more, which was a really fulfilling way to use those 2 days. And that's the thing. It's usually, a 2-day conference. And so we certainly filled our time over those 2 days, which was nice and fun. So yes, thank you for the awesome recap, Logan, of our involvement. And then just kind of shifting into like some favorite moments from my experience while I was there from those moments, kind of getting more into that. So like Logan said, we did a food tour of the show floor, which I think is just a fun idea in general. If you're doing an event that has an exhibit and has caterers or food stations, this is a fun thing that you can do. That's just an amplified guest experience. Um, Part of it, we had an attendee who came up and they're like, well, I could walk all these by myself. So what's the benefit of doing the food tour? And I was like, you're right. You totally could go walk all these by yourself. But the caterers have prepared something special for us. And we all got to go hear from the caterers. So we went around to different stations. We stopped at 8 stations and the caterers had like a little spiel, something to say, but it was actually really enlightening as an event professional to hear something more specific about them and specifically about what they were serving that was catered to our group specifically. And so I really appreciate that catered type of experience, like literally catered from catering, that type of experience. And the food was just good, honestly. Everything we ate was good. And along the way, we asked attendees, like, what's your favorite so far? And they had so many things. There were these meatballs that folks really liked. And then there was like some seafood things that I actually didn't try, but I heard that were super good that people really liked. There's a caterer who has this Chex Mix that they're really known for, and they give those out. And I enjoyed that for a couple days after the conference. Actually, Logan also makes her Chex Mix every holiday season. So I'm not saying it competes.
It's different. There's many kinds of Chex Mix out there. Don't worry, Mary. You don't have to flatter me.
Okay, I am flattering you because yours is bomb, but theirs was amazing as well. So yeah, different flavoring for sure. But all this to say, it was just a fun group experience. And to have us walking through the show floor in this group of, 25 people with silent disco headsets on was just kind of funny too. Like you could tell people were intrigued by what was going on. And so I love that example of just having a way to have an amplified experience for guests. And then for us to be a part of it was pretty special. So that's one of the things that was one of my favorite moments from the show for sure.
And then how'd your session go on the second day?
The session went really well. So it was more of a workshop style, which we love doing. Logan, we talk about workshop stuff all the time. We did that a lot for our in-person day of the Better Events Conference last December. And I think we got good feedback from that. And similar to this, it's just something different that folks haven't tried, and we hadn't done it before either. So we did a fishbowl style, which I've heard of for years. I think that's one of the more original ideas for a workshop type of session. But we finally did it, and it was actually really cool. And actually, as I'm saying that out loud, Logan, at the Better Events Conference, we did the fireside chat where folks could come up and take a seat. It was a similar vibe to that. So we had folks who had a question or concern or something that they were working through with their event to come up and get some consulting on that from the group. And that worked really well, and people were so engaged. And one of the coolest things that Northwest Event Show does every year is they partner with Event Wrap. And so at the end of our session, there was a representative from the Event Wrap there, and he was taking notes. And he thought that he was going to be taking notes about 4 presenters. But little did he know we were going to have people come up and also speak and sit in that chair. So he created a wrap on like 14 different people saying something. It was the coolest thing. You can check it out. We posted about it on LinkedIn. Like if you look at my personal LinkedIn, there's a video of it because he absolutely killed it. It was such a cool way to summarize the session in real time, and it was really fun.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah. And the fishbowl structure is one. I'll link it again in the show notes. We've talked about it here on the podcast, but that's part of the Liberating Structures, which I'm turning into more of a convert that every event professional should read if you're trying to get away from speaker and slide. So I'm happy to hear, Mary, that was such a hit.
Absolutely. And I do want to call out before we shift away from that, I did co-present that with other fundraising event planners in the area. So shout out to Gazala, Alex, and DC. So it was not just me. It was definitely a team effort there. All right, now we're transitioning to the next part of our episode where we went around on the show floor and asked a handful of folks tips for creating better events. We love our theme, so we went all in on that for this. And they gave us some feedback. So we're going to listen to a series of clips on their tips on how to create better events. So let's go ahead and get into the first clip from Kim.
Hi, I'm Kim with EP Events, and I think one of the important things for planning is making sure that you have clear and concise communication with your clients.
Well, we love clear and concise. I feel like she was clear and concise in her tip, and that probably mimics her wanting to be clear and concise with her clients. Shout out to Kim, Mary's teammate at EP Events. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. We love, is that the best tip for creating better events? Who knows? But I appreciate that. It feels like maybe Kim's been having maybe some not clear and concise communication with people. So there is nothing worse than, I feel like, I'll tangent a little bit here, Mary, but I had a client once that never responded to things in the same email thread. It was always a new email. And so it made it really hard to track the conversation. Every response was a new email. And so to go back to be like, wait, what were we even talking about? Or what was I asking the question about? You had to go through like 8 different emails. Or if you're catching up on your inbox, you had to literally read every email in your inbox before you could go back and respond, because there was a high chance they answered a question later in an individual email. And I wasted a lot of time doing that. So clear and concise, it's the way to go.
Yes, I have to say this is like our bonus tips, when we think of them. I think we're pulling from like recent experiences as well. And as I'm thinking through this, I think that's what a lot of these probably are going to be from people, is like a recent experience here is how you can have a better event. So it happens to us too. So interested to hear what's coming.
All right. Our next one is from another EP Events teammate, Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin with EP Events, and I'm the event coordinator there. And I think one way we can create better events is by setting up clear responsibilities and roles.
We got a lot of clear stuff going on. Yes, Caitlin and Kim, thank you for doing this. I did set my team up to do this, and I appreciate their insight. And yeah, this is probably coming from some recent experience on both of them. But for this one, absolutely. I think roles are so crucial. Like if you go into an event and you don't know what you're doing, can you imagine just like the absolute chaos that can ensue? We talked about on a lot of our episodes, just all the different types of people involved in an event. So absolutely clear and concise roles. I love it. Thank you, Caitlin.
That is my favorite follow-up question to ask people when they say like, oh, this has to be get done. It's like, okay, who? Yeah, you sound like an owl. It's like, who is doing that? All right. Our next one is from Alicia.
Hi, this is Alicia Malcolm. I am with Bell Harbor Conference Center, and one piece of advice that has served me well is always to look for the opportunity to humanize your approach. So I always like to share who I am and what's important to me, like, hi, I'm Alicia, a Seattle native, a bit of a unicorn in that way, a dog mom, and look for where I can connect. And also opening with a question, leading with that curiosity of, what are you up to? What's important to you? What are your goals here at the NWES Event Show? How can I help support your goals?
Alicia, I feel like we love adding any human element into things. Anytime we get out of that robotic mentality, it sounds like you would be quite fun to talk to on the floor at the NWES Event Show if you're asking those kind of intentional questions.
Yes. And something I like about this too is there's you'll see from the clips that we're getting, these are from like a series of individuals. So we have some event planners, we have like sales representatives similar to like Alicia's role. And then we go into others as well that we're going to hear from soon. I won't give it away. So keep that in mind as you're listening to these. They're bringing different perspectives to a better event depending on their role as well, which we just talked about roles. So that's perfect to call out. And then that brings us into our next clip, which we have from David.
I think my most poignant one was Anka's talk about AI. And what really brought it all, there was a lot of tactical tools and help and tricks and hacks and all that good stuff, let alone the room was standing room only. But what really nailed it for me was the fact that AI isn't here to replace you. I think there's a lot of people who see new technology and freak out a little bit, but it's not here to replace you. It is here to support you. And when you use it intentionally and you start understanding what kind of repetitive tasks and automations and things of that nature can help you, it actually gives you back a lot of your time. And if there's something that we can all use, it's more time. So if you start slow with AI, which is the way to do it, and just try things, see how it does, and then keep moving along through the process, you'll inevitably learn new things, new tricks, new ways of using it in a way that works for you and your workflows. That will actually free up time for you to go to the gym, to be more mindful, to take a moment to breathe, to meditate in the afternoon, to spend time with your kids. It doesn't matter. If you're working until 8, 9 o'clock at night because you're busy doing mundane, repetitive tasks, that's where AI can help. It can really accelerate getting repetitive things done quickly, let alone automating certain things so that you get time back to be human, And that's the best possible solution in the world. So don't freak out about it. Give it a shot, try it, and good luck.
David, thank you so much for your clip. We love following along on your journey, and it was so cool that you were able to come to the Northwest Event Show. We have run into David over time, and I personally have run into him at multiple events in other states, and actually in Mexico as well, unexpectedly. And so, David, thank you so much for sending this clip in on creating better events.
Our next one here is from Avery.
All right. Hi, I'm Avery from BBJ La Tavola. And my number one tip for hosting a better event is make intentional choices. Make a choice for a reason, not just because someone put options in front of you. Make a choice.
I often joke that as event planners and an event we are like paid decision makers, because sometimes your client can't make that choice. And so they often will deflect back to you of what you think the best choice is. And so often I do laugh that we have to be very good at picking an answer, sticking with it, and then having reasoning later for why we picked that one.
All right. And now we are ready for our next clip from Tony.
Hey, Better Events Pod community. This is Tony from TEP, and I'm just making sure that you know the Northwest Event Show was in full spades, making sure that AI is accessible to people. There are so many incredible ways to extrapolate not only your emails and other different things like that in text, but in ways that you can connect different pieces of software and other things. Anka had an unbelievable session that really just got me thinking, wow, I am so unsophisticated when it comes to how I'm using these technologies, because whether it be understanding certain softwares, finding out how to tie them together, you hear this acronym API and you're like, oh, I guess that's how one thing plugs into another. Well, AI can help you API and make sure that all things are functioning and all pistons are firing. That was really, really engaging. And I think I found that out as well from the Ready Now session on the main stage. There was just enough of the AI stuff that really got me excited about what's going to be happening in the future. On top of that, I really specifically enjoyed how much unbelievable food that there was on display and for taste here at the Pacific Northwest event show, trade show floor. That was just unbelievable that we have so many amazing vendors that are doing so many tasty and delicious things. So it's definitely a smorgasbord out there when it comes to being able to find all of the wonderful people to work with and just bringing in really creative and new things into your events with your team. But I do challenge all of you, and challenge myself most of all as I'm saying this, to really level up our game when it comes to how we're utilizing the technology that's available to us right now. It is something that is so accessible. And if you are at all feeling like you're just scratching the surface, just ask a friend, because it is necessary that we as a community and as an event marketplace level up, show the world that Seattle and the Northwest, and really, we're not just that, we're the entire world represented here. So excuse me for the closed community that I imagined that this was initially, but showing them that anyone who follows the Better Events podcast is someone who is going to be pushing the boundary and who's going to be leveling up events at an exponential level.
Wow, Tony, thank you so much for those tips. And I am suspecting that we have a trend going on. A lot of people are commenting about the same thing. We did not plan this. So it shows that there are some trends that we have seen throughout the Northwest Event Show or that others are seeing. So Tony, thank you so much for your thoughts. We know you were deeply involved in the Northwest Event Show. So thank you for taking the time to record this for us as well.
Our next one is from Julianne.
Hi, I'm Julianne Reed, and I'm an event planner. And one thing that I always try to do is to really partner with my vendors and really find a way for us to work really well together to produce the best event for our shared client. And the way that you could do that is just by working with them and understanding what their needs are and then what your client needs are and working to balance that. And I think that that's just super, super key in having a wonderful event.
It's like Julianne kind of prophesized what our episode of last week was going to be about, talking about partnering with vendors. We dive even more into that episode in episode 201. If you want to go back 1 week and listen, just we talk a little bit about that. But love the idea of always having the intention of partnering with your vendors, even if that's not always how it works out. But I think that's just a great energy to bring into an event.
Wonderful. And now we have our last and final clip from Anka.
Hi everyone, this is Anka Platon Trifan, and I just wanted to share some of my thoughts from Northwest Event Show and take a moment to reflect on some powerful takeaways that I have had the opportunity to bring back to help us create better events. For me, it's this. AI isn't here to replace us, it's here to support us. When used with intention, AI and automation can take the edge off repetitive tasks, clear the clutter, and give us space to focus on what really matters: strategy, creativity, and human connection. I had the opportunity to speak in front of a packed room of event professionals. Like many of us are being asked to do more with less and also do it faster. So I talked about what's possible right now with AI, with automation and augmentation, how to build smarter flows, how to look realistically at what adoption looks like, and why small, consistent wins beat any big flashy promises every single time. But what truly stuck with me were the reminders from others as well. For example, David D. Stevens reminded us that wellness isn't a perk, it's a strategy. It should be built in, not bolted on. Jason Thompson gave us a mantra that I'm personally keeping close. Is this a hammer, a hammock, or a hug moment? A pause to ask ourselves, do I need to act? Do I need to rest or connect? And that one I definitely took home. I left this show feeling more grounded, more connected, and more committed to building events that are not just efficient, but intentional, human, and deeply supportive. And yes, there might have been an oyster slurping contest that I lost. Have no regrets. So big thanks to the Northwest show team, Lisa, Devon, the AV production crew, everyone who made this space possible, Mary for hosting the Better Event meetup, as well as the trade show crawl. I've never in my life experienced so many catering places in one space under one roof. Okay, maybe aside from Kidder Source. So that was fun. So with that, the main takeaway here, I hope that events like this encourage us to keep making better events, one smart, human-centered choice at a time. Thank you.
Anka, thank you so much for that. Anka's a huge friend of the pod. We love Anka. We've been friends for a while now, and once again, our industry is crazy. I like the fact that all of these wonderful people are at Northwest Event Show is such a cool thing. So Anka, we really appreciate just your support of the podcast and your thoughts on creating better events. So thank you as well. Now we're going to transition into sharing our tips, Logan. This is the Better Events podcast. It's only fitting that we also share our tips on creating better events, but we're going to bring this from the perspective of right now. It's April 2025, Logan. What is a tip that you have about creating a better event right now?
My brain goes into like 17 different directions based on just how my April has been going. Top of mind for me right now is to be timely with your event wrap up in the sense of capturing all of your post event notes. This is an aspirational one for me because I still have events in March, but it's now April and I still have not taken all my notes that are written on run of shows, notebooks all over place and condensed it into one post event report. I talk about that ad nauseum here on the podcast, how much I love my post event report, but I've had a particularly busy start to the year these last 4 months, and the first thing to get pushed on my to-do list is often wrapping up my notes from an event. And so I'm saying it here on the podcast to speak it into existence that by the end of this week, I will have wrapped my March events, even though it's now 3 weeks into April. And that is something you should just do it. Do it the same week of your event or a week after. Don't let it keep going, because then you're like me and it's been several weeks and you still haven't written it down. So that's how you can create better events. Mary, what's yours?
Okay, mine, once again, coming to you from this time of year, I think a lot of us are busy right now, or either coming out of it or going into busy times. And so with that being said, I know I kind of need a reset. I'm like, I set all these, goals and aspirations at the beginning of the year, and then here we are, it's April, need to recalibrate a little bit. And one of those things that I think can really help continue to create a better event is using your systems. And so that's the direction I'm going to go for this tip, which is to make sure that you're using them to the extent that they are intended to be used. So go update your statuses, go make those comments and make sure that people around you know what's going on. Now, if you're working with an internal team, that's usually when this comes into play more. But regardless, if it's just yourself, don't get too far off track. This is our friendly, tip to create a better event, to get back on the bandwagon of your systems so that you can finish out April and this coming summer strong.
Yeah, and that brings us to the end. This was Northwest Event Show. I don't remember if we mentioned, Mary, even the dates that this happens. Traditionally, it's end of March, early April. Again, hosted in Seattle historically at our Seattle Convention Center. So just a plug for any of our listeners, if you are someone who maybe can't make it over to Seattle for the Better Events Conference in December, but your spring looks easier, you have a project around here, we would love to have you join us at the next Northwest Event Show next year, next spring. Like we said, we do that coffee meetup ahead of time, and it is just a really fun excuse and kind of anchor event for you to meet other event professionals and expand your own network, whether you're based here in the Pacific Northwest, from the East Coast, or even international. So hope to see you at this event next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Logan. And that brings us to our bonus tip, which I have today. And so, okay, with our bonus tip, I recently was at an event that had a bookstore, and I was looking at all the books, and one of them really caught my eye, and I've done a really deep dive into it since then. It's called Roadmap, the Get It Together guidebook, and we will link it in the show notes. But basically, this is a book by Road Trip Nation. If you're familiar with them, they help people figure out what they want to do with their careers. But the whole point of the book is that regardless of where you are in your career, maybe you are a student, or maybe you have been doing something the same thing for a long time, this book is still for you. So it's kind of coming back and figuring out what you want to do with your life, which I think we all ask ourselves so many times. And so it's a big workbook, and it has prompts that you can write in and respond to. And I actually am super into it. It's been kind of fun to be able to do. So our bonus tip today is that if you also feel like you need to get your life together, there is this book for you.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can send us an email at bettereventspod@gmail.com. You can also connect directly with Mary and I on LinkedIn. Just mention in your little comment when you do that you heard of us from the podcast. We love hearing from you. And if you want even more Better Events content, think quarterly episodes, a private community. This is all hosted on Substack for just $75 a year. You can continue to support the podcast. As always, we thank you for listening, and we'll be back in your feeds again next Wednesday.